Cordkillers Reckoning. The world of entertainment is turned upside down, and we're just trying to find out how to watch what we want, where we want, whenever we want. I'm Tom Merritt. Where's the good stuff, Brian?
Oh, my goodness. The good stuff is in this new soundboard. Hopefully I sound different. We'll see.
You sound amazing. How did you do that?
You know what? I don't know if I'm amazing, but I am amazed.
Yeah, maybe I'm amazed at the way you sound good all the time.
Oh, I thought you were going to say amazed at the booty we got on the supply run.
I was.
Supply run.
Where's the beef? Well, the beef is in neuroscience, my friends. That's where it is. The conversation, I'm sorry, not the conversation, Wired had an article in honor of the return of the show Severance to Apple TV about the real cognitive neuroscience behind severing someone. So if you actually look at what they talk about in Severance, they're a little bit hand wavy about how it works. They say that they go in and they wall off part of the brain. And then when you get in the elevator and you go up to that floor, something happens that shuts down your public self, your outie, and activates your innie. But Wired points out that there's some real neuroscience behind this. Since the 1940s, there have been patients identified as split brain. There were patients before the 1940s. They just didn't identify them. So to control epilepsy symptoms, some patients underwent surgery to make them split brain, separating their left and right hemispheres. Similar surgeries are still happening these days. And research on that type of surgery showed that separated hemispheres of split brain patients could process information independently. So there's one patient in a study that was asked what job he would like in the future. His left hemisphere chose an office job making technical drawings, and his right hemisphere arranged letters to spell automobile racer. So the different halves of his brain wanted different jobs. Split brain patients have also reported something called alien hand syndrome, where one of their hands is perceived to just move on its own volition. These observations suggest that there are two separate conscious personalities, two separate people coexisting in one brain, and they may not even have the same goals. Brian, you were telling me before the show, like you studied for this in college.
Yeah, I took a couple of classes on linguistics and cognitive neuroscience, that kind of stuff. And on top of that, you make I've spent the last decade. The reason we talk about all this branding talk is because I'm fascinated by the fact that our bodies, in advertising, they say when the heart and the mind will follow. And so this is my jam, man. But far and away, if this is fascinating to you, if the stuff you've heard already has you interested, then the very first book that I read about this was David Eagleman's book, Incognito. And in it, he makes the parallel of, think of your two hemispheres as basically your brain is Congress, and you got Democrats and Republicans. Now, lightning could strike either one of the two political parties, and the country would pretty much function. Now, it'll be a very different country. The country we have now is basically largely built on consensus between the two parties.
Hold on, Brian. I'm going to pause to let the people who have been distracted by imagining the party they don't like being hit by lightning to catch back up. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Well, and it is something that you have to divorce yourself from the politics to think about. But basically, all the structures are there. You know, bills can be passed. Everyone knows how to do things on one side or the other of the aisle. So in the case of the epileptic split brain patients, these are folks who have so many seizures where, not knowing what else to do, they cut the corpus callosum, which is the connective tissue in the middle of the two hemispheres, apart. And they behave totally normally, but what happens is independent of each other. So it used to be that the two roommates inside your head talked a lot, and they do seem to have two different personalities. But because of the split brain experiments, they were able to, because your optic nerve from the right hemisphere looks through your left eye and vice versa, or they were able to put things in the left hand versus the right hand, which also crosses to the different hemispheres. They could, by not letting one hemisphere, see what's going on, get answers from the other hemisphere. And now let's add another layer on top of that. Part of the reason that we love our narratives is because there's a linguistic section of the brain that tends to be only on one side or the other, called Broca's area. And when somebody has a lesion in there, they can't talk, or if they have what's called a vernicus aphasia, then they just word salad comes tumbling out. That's all the linguistic part of the brain, which is depending on, well, now we're on the fringy part. I like to think when we go to sleep and dream, it's kind of the non-linguistic parts of your brain screaming at you its opinion. And so one of the things they found out, this is one of the most fascinating parts, is they would show both eyes a series of images. You know, like both eyes see an apple and you say apple, and then they both side a race car and so on. But then they would show a boring image to the linguistic side of the brain, but on the other side, they would show hardcore pornography, and people would burst out laughing. And then literally they don't know why they did that, and not at a conscious level, not at a linguistic, not an able to talk about it kind of way. But we crave narratives about ourselves to be so simple and direct that people say, you laughed. Why did you do that? And immediately people would say, oh, you know, just you eggheads and all your science is so funny. It's so, this is a silly experiment. So you actually have a roommate. All of the science indicates that you have a roommate in your head. And just to close the loop on this, and you can quiz me on anything you want, Tom. But one of the ways we know this for a fact is that in some young kids, if they do this early enough, if the seizures are bad enough, they will have a procedure called a hemispherectomy. Tom, what do you suppose that is?
Well, if I know anything about ectomies and hemispheres, it sounds like you're saying they take one out.
They literally remove half the brain.
Yikes.
And at first, the kids come out and they can't speak, and it's very tough. But this is in David Engelman's more recent book from 2022, Live-Wired. He points out that neurons that fire together wire together, and basically your brain remaps. Sections that were originally used for visual stuff can map onto audio, and you know, linguistic stuff can be remapped. It's truly amazing, and it's remarkable that in our lifetime, Tom, so much of this is just now even approaching the testable hypothesis area.
Yeah, a lot of this starts to verge on the research that shows that you make your decision before you're aware that you make your decision, which many respectable scientists believe means you don't actually have free will, that your free will is just you rationalizing the laugh that you were describing, basically. And as fascinating as this is, and it is truly fascinating and worth just talking on its own, I don't know. I keep trying to come back to Severance and say, okay, so we've got the similarity of two personalities living in the same brain, right? You've got roommates. You've got the similarity of one is not aware of the other. Is there a way, though, that doesn't involve new thing we discovered in plot that would let you do what they do in Severance? That's where I'm having the disconnect is, okay, but all of the other brain stuff you're talking about, the conscious person is unaware of when they have the split brain.
Or at least they don't have the ability to use words to describe it.
Yeah,
it doesn't
or
get
only
to
the hand can answer, not vocal, etc. And in Severance, we see both personalities fully in control of all aspects of the person.
Yeah, so there have been studies do seem to indicate that what we perceive as real-time consciousness is basically a few milliseconds after the fact confabulation. It's a construct, basically. And one way that you can see that instantly is we perceive when we snap our fingers that visually and audio is happening at the same time. But of course, we know that the speed of sound is slower than the speed of light, which is different from the electrical, which is the same speed as the electrical impulses in our nerve system. But so separately, if we want to, and also you and I both know The only reason we're talking about this is because Apple paid a lot of neuroscientists to get people to talk about the mind and severance and stuff, in which case, well played. This is an effective investment of your money, Apple.
I don't even mind that I know that that's the case. It's such a good topic. Yeah, it's fair play, Apple.
So you're probably familiar with the technology behind this, but I can picture transcranial magnetic stimulation. If anybody's unfamiliar, so we've known for years, if you put electrodes in humans and rats' brains or whatever, you could straight up just hit a button, mild current happens, and people suddenly are sad or whatever.
Yeah, right.
A more recent development in the last couple of decades has been incredibly powerful magnets. Basically, you got one wave and another wave, and the interference pattern happens in a known to be associated with this feeling or that feeling part of the brain. And as a result, now all of a sudden they press a button, and with no harm, you get this temporary effect of just, these insane experiences that people are still beginning to map out and getting better and better to do. I could imagine, we also know that lesions in certain parts of the brain will preserve your long-term memory but rob you of short-term memory, or the reverse. There are various types of amnesia. And another book that is excellent that I'm still making my way through is called The Extended Mind, aka Thinking Outside the Brain, where basically some of it is intuitive stuff, like if you once were in a play 20 years ago and you had to write down all your lines, maybe you'd get it, maybe you wouldn't. But if you had all the props and you were in costume and all your old friends were doing their lines, you would suddenly be able to recall, almost 100% of it. So knowing that we have kind of a work environment and a set of work habits that are different than our home habits. And to be honest, Tom, this is why I have multiple desktops set up around campus, is because when I'm seated here, I know I'm in talking to a camera mode,
Yeah.
Which is different than editing mode. I could picture some kind of magnetic procedure that maybe has a temporary effect that lasts. But then again, I'm acting like an expert in something that I'm just a big fan of.
We're sort of like running on the edge of understanding here. But I think it's fun to think about, because this Wired article specifically was saying severance, the science is real. And I think it's fair for Rachel Elward and Lauren Ford, who wrote this excellent article, to say that. It's me that's like, okay, the science is real. Let's make it real. Like if the science behind it is real, how do we replicate the exact conditions of that? And that, that's something that no one is actively researching. This was a fictional story that was kind of dipped in science, but that's what Star Trek was too. And now we have phones that can do video calls, so this is the kind of thing that can inspire science. We often think of science fiction inspiring science in hardware and technology, but it's not impossible that this inspires the ability to have two personalities in the same body. Now, would we want it for work purposes? The entire point of the show Severance is to explore the problems with that and whether we really would want that or not. But there might be other uses for that. And I think that's what's really cool about this idea, and what really sparked my desire to want to talk about it was, well, if there's something to this, maybe it will encourage more people to research it.
You know what? There's actually a very soft version of it that, as I understand it, we can already do. For example, one of the therapies that Eagleman talks about in Livewired is there's a bracelet that has a microphone in it, and there's a band of motors that do vibration just like your cell phone vibration. And with interference patterns, they have like 128 points of stimulation. And when you first put it on, just like somebody who gets a cochlear implant, when they first wake up, everything is just white noise. But then later, the way they describe it, it's like, but then it turns into sound, ? And they don't, we understand more that what's happening is basically neurons are firing together and wiring together. But one of the astonishing things is, if you're hearing impaired because there's a microphone, you're able to, at first, it's just so many vibrations, but then you begin to associate, oh, that's so-and-so's voice. That's a dog barking, and on and on. But this is where I think I can grant your wish, Tom. A soft version of Severance comes in the fact that people who have tinnitus, now let's say they have their hearing, but they have severe tinnitus, the ringing in the ears, because they're wearing this, as their brains map to expect that these vibrations are associated with sound, the brain runs into a problem. It's like, well, I'm hearing this ringing, but, well, that's weird. My wrist doesn't hear the hearing. Oh, wait, it doesn't hear that ringing. Oh, wait, that must not be a real sound. And then just like if you've ever had those floaters in your eyes and your eyes stay still, you can perceive, you can watch your brain Photoshop those out.
Yeah.
Essentially, the brain would Photoshop out the tinnitus sound as being inaccurate. So I would imagine...
So it like cancels it out, like noise canceling headphones to your tinnitus. That's amazing.
Yeah, correct. And on top of that, I can perceive a world okay, you want to know how crazy I've got it for the YouTube algorithm, Tom? I actually looked into, they have belts surrounding with motors that you can just program a script, and it's just a constant data feed of whatever it is. So as you're going through your day, there are experiments that show that like, for example, a constant feed of data about corn futures and news items can come in, and you feel these vibrations at all times. And then you can kind of feel, and linguistically, you will not be able to say why, but after your brain attunes to it, just like in a D&D campaign, somebody can stop and go, I think corn futures are about to drop. And so I literally, as soon as I got $5,000 to throw at it, I want to get one of these belts and try piping in all the YouTube algorithm stuff, because I'll be danged if over the last 6 months you can't see the patterns. The problem is it takes my real-time attention to look at it, whereas if it's just vibrating all the time, I can see a situation where I just know, oh, that video's blowing up again. That means this next one's coming up. That means I ought to do blank or whatever. It's really an astonishing field. So to grant your wish for a Severance thing, I could imagine a series of devices that amplify your work environment and your home environment in different flavors, such that while you're at work, you barely, everything is encouraged. All your stimulation is just for work, and intrusive home thoughts like never happen.
Yeah.
And likewise at home, the reverse of that. I don't know. I could see that actually being a common everyday thing.
And this would be bad for the Severance show, because the tension of the plot is built on the strict separation. But in reality, it wouldn't be that you can't remember what happened at work. You could access memories, right? The practical effect of what you're talking about is you won't be likely to think about work as much when you're at home. Right? It would take a little effort for you to go like, what happened at work today? Versus now, where it just kind of all jumbles together and things come up and you think about it for whatever reason. I almost imagine it like workspaces on a desktop, right?
Yes.
When you go to work, you shift your brain to the work desktop, and all your work knowledge becomes easily accessible. All your home knowledge, would take a little more effort and to remember and kind of sink down into your subconscious, where the lines from your high school drama live. And then when you get back home, you switch back to the home desktop on your brain, and all the work stuff gets shoved down in there, and all your home stuff comes back. That's fascinating.
Yeah. At any rate, read those books. They're really, really good. And if you're a cognitive neuroscientist and you would like to point out all the things Brian got terribly wrong, write us at cordkillers@gmail.com.
Especially if you can be like, I know how we could do Severance and could tell us about it. That would be amazing. Meanwhile, we continue to want to take your money.
Yeah, dude. And we've devised a clever plan. First, in about 5 years, Tom and I are going to invent a time machine. And when we do, we're going to use it to go back in time to the late aughts. We're going to plant the seed for a little product called Patreon. Now, get this. What it's going to do is it's going to empower us later to keep ourselves loud, live, and independent. There's only one key aspect to this highfalutin shenanigan, and that's you guys. The only way this works is if you guys head on over to patreon.com/cordkillers. Give us a buck. Give us a buck. and then we'll keep on doing the show. And you'll get a bunch of bonus stuff. You'll get exclusive access to the Aftertalk segments. You'll get early access to the full experience. You'll get exclusive access to our spoiler in time, although I don't know if I have anything to spoiler in this. We could talk about Silo. But yeah, patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Yeah. And you'll ensure time travel will become real.
Yes.
Just saying. You might want to.
We got to fund this time machine somehow.
Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Let's move on to the search party. There is a trailer. Oh, there are so many trailers, but this trailer that I'm talking about is about Daredevil Born Again, the quote-unquote new Marvel Cinematic Universe series coming to Disney Plus in March with almost all the characters from the Netflix Daredevil series, but now in an MCU series.
As we loved and have watched all of the Daredevil stuff. I think I fell off on the Punisher and Elektra stuff, but how did this trailer, I did not get a chance to see it. How did it strike in terms of tone?
So the tone is, hey, we know you loved that Netflix Daredevil. We're going to try to do all the things you loved about the Netflix Daredevil, but with a Marvel Cinematic Universe appeal, because we know that was the one thing you missed about Netflix Daredevil is they just had to say the big guy and, the events in New York. We don't have to do that anymore. We can say the Avengers out loud and mean it. So come on for Daredevil Born Again. Also, the Punisher will be in it. And we're out.
Oh, is that the big twist? And it's the same actor, the guy
from
Shane
Walking Dead.
From Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all he'll ever be.
And you get some dim, distant view of Froggy. So it's like, this, I don't know if they're going to tell us this is Daredevil alternate universe, but all the same characters, or if this is, Daredevil, the Netflix series moved into the MC universe from another, I don't know, but most of the trailer is taken up with Kingpin and Daredevil sitting down for coffee and saying like, it's been a long time, but you and we've been through a lot. You sure you want to chat with me? Are we doing this again? Like lots of like meta level stuff going on, but it's good. Those guys are good at what they do.
Is it just me, Tom, or do we think that the normies, the general populace, the non-geek comic book reading crowd, I think they get it, and I really hope that they don't say the word alternate universe or anything. Just maybe let us wonder, just like we had to do with the comic books.
Yeah, I mean, the entire MCU is built around multiverse right now. You don't need to hang a hat on it, right? Everybody knows that we're swimming in those waters. So unless it's important for the plot, which it could be at some point, I'm with you. Like you could leave us guessing which universe we're in for a while, and that'd be more fun.
Yeah, maybe forever. Maybe like whatever, we get it. It's not the exact same universe, but it's the one next door. It's almost exactly the same. In this one,
although
this
these
actor
TV
has
shows,
to be played by someone else.
They're saying they want to separate the TV shows from the movies more, like where you don't need to watch the TV series, so maybe they won't connect it. But the TV shows definitely have a trend for like, we're going to do something that sets up a ball that will be knocked down in the movies. So I can't imagine they won't reference the multiverse at all. Like they won't be able to help themselves, I don't think.
Yeah.
Greta Gerwig's streaming adaptation of C.S. Lewis' Narnia is getting an exclusive 2-week IMAX global run in 90 countries across 1,000 auditoriums. That is interesting because the Greta Gerwig adaptation of C.S. Lewis's Narnia books is coming to Netflix. But Thanksgiving 2026, you'll be able to go watch it in IMAX. Well, it won't be Thanksgiving around the world, but end of November around the world in 2026, you'll be able to go watch it in IMAX before it comes to Netflix.
Right on. I don't know. Did Narnia ever become beloved to you? Because I don't think it did to me.
Absolutely. I adored The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Read it multiple times. When I got old enough to be given the other books, I was not old enough to read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but I read it anyway. And when my parents deemed me old enough, they bought me the entire series. I tore through it. I tore through it multiple times. I went on to read the Screw Tape letters and all the nonfiction C.S. Lewis. Like I was a C.S. Lewis stan growing up. So, Mere Christianity was like in my book bag in high school. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I have not, however, been as big a fan of the adaptations. The animated one was okay way back, kind of similar to the Lord of the Rings animated one. The movies that did the first couple of books were fine. I didn't feel like they were bad, but they didn't capture the scope. Greta Gerwig did a fantastic job with Little Women and with Barbie, and I am very curious why she turned to Narnia. Just, as the next thing she wanted to do. She's very good at what she does, though, so I'm fascinated by what she's going to do with this.
Yeah. That's certainly a heck of a pedigree. I thought Little Women was fantastic, as was
Barbie.
As was Barbie, yeah.
So yeah, as someone who grew up as a big C.S. Lewis fan, I'm very, very interested in a good version of the Narnia movies. The broadcast of the Super Bowl is always done for free. That may be something, if people haven't followed this space as long as Brian and I might not remember, is that the Super Bowl was one of the first sporting events streamed online for free. Because the idea was, well, we have so many eyes on this already. We want to maximize those eyes. We want to get those ads in front of more people. Don't restrict it behind a paywall. Give it to as many people as possible. And so this is just a minor advance, but for the first time, the broadcast will be available in 4K on Tubi, because Fox has the Super Bowl this year. It rotates between the different networks that have NFL rights. Fox has it. You'll still be able to watch it on Fox. You'll still be able to watch it on the Fox Sports app with your cable subscription. But if you have Tubi, you'll be able to get it there with ads, of course, because it's an ad-supported platform, so that's not new. And this year marks the first time Tubi will have the Super Bowl, and that happens on February 9th.
Cordkillers@gmail.com to check me on this one, but I'm almost certain, Tom, that while we were very excited for the very early streaming broadcasts of the Super Bowl, I remember there was a frustration. There was a bitter irony of the fact that that the ads were like the same 7 boring online ads. And
it's been different years, but yeah, there have definitely been many years, probably most years, where that has been the case.
Yeah.
I think that more recently they've started to be like, yeah, let's traffic in the national ads, because we've gotten unified ad buying across digital platforms, which we didn't have for years. I think there's more of that, but it's still, some of them are different. And hopefully they will just, like, Tubi itself has a reputation for being like, yeah, that's the 3rd Clorox ad I've watched this break. Hopefully that doesn't happen if you're watching the Super Bowl. But also, I think it's going to make this available for some people who've cut the cord and they're like, yeah, I just watched Tubi and Pluto, who are like, ooh, I would like to watch the Super Bowl. How do I do that? Well, there you go. There's your answer. I don't generally like anymore doing a lot of obituaries on the shows I do, because there's sort of a mission creep that happens where you end up doing an obituary every episode because, frankly, people are dying every day.
What? You heard it here first, people. Breaking news.
But I'm going to break my rule here, because I do feel like in the annals of television and experimental television and geek television and all the areas of television we cover as part of Cordkillers, David Lynch is particularly significant, certainly particularly significant to me, and the maker of Twin Peaks, which is a show that is beloved to me. But yeah, David Lynch passed away this past week, and just thought it was worth mentioning that, you know what, if you'd been meaning to get around or needed an excuse to watch a David Lynch movie or watch a David Lynch TV series, here's a good time to celebrate the man who once said no one really dies. They just move on to the next thing. So hopefully he has.
Yeah. Also, infamously removed his name from his depiction of Dune. But Dune, that movie, David Lynch's Dune, was the one that got me into the Duneverse, got me to read the books, got me to consume all of the video games and all of the media. So that's one of those, it's like a bad pizza is still a pizza, it's great. As a matter of fact, to get a sense of just how profoundly good and talented he was. By the way, in high school, they taught to always use the present tense, even when somebody passed away, and it feels so odd, but I'll say was. There's we're going to do a Modern Rogue video on this, but psychologists, in order to induce a state of anxiety, would show a David Lynch short film. I think it's Rabbits is the name of it. That's something that we wanted to experiment with. Like, the dude had weaponized vaguely unpleasantness.
Yeah. I did a rewatch of Twin Peaks and then a watch of Twin Peaks: The Return with Ron Richards years ago when it came back on Showtime. We timed it so that our rewatch episodes of that podcast led right up to The Return on Showtime, and then we did an episode every week talking about The Return. We had stopped at episode 49. And for the longest time, we're like, gosh, we should do episode 50, but what should we do it about? Should we do it about the Blu-rays, or should we do it about this? Should we do it about that? And then when we got the news last Thursday that David Lynch had died, we both were like, episode 50, here we go. So that if you enjoyed Damn Fine Podcast with me and Ron Richards, episode 50 is out if it didn't pop up in a moribund feed somewhere for you. And one of the stories I told in there was, I didn't realize until later in life how much impact David Lynch had on me, because I didn't realize how much I was watching. HBO came to cable television in Greenville when we launched in 1982, like early 1982 is when cable television came to Greenville. Actually, it might have been late 81, but HBO would only show like 3 movies back then, right? They would get the rights to 3 movies and they would just run them over and over again. So my sister and I would watch over and over again the movies that were on HBO, because I think we got a free preview when we first signed up. So we were watching The Jazz Singer and My Bodyguard and The Elephant Man. And I was fascinated with The Elephant Man. I loved it. I was like, this is amazing. I would be the only one to watch it. My sister's like, I don't know if I like this one.
That was in heavy cable rotation in the early 80s, because I remember only, and I was too young for it. I was like second or third grade, but I only remember that end scene, the I am not an animal, again and again.
Yeah. I would, his name was John Merrick, the Elephant Man. So I would go around saying I was Tom Merrick and like talk like this. And I had no idea that was David Lynch when later in life I discovered Twin Peaks and Wild at Heart, which was something we got free tickets to go see in a preview when I worked at the radio station. And just, over and over again, David Lynch created amazing things in lots of different ways. What's I'm blanking on the name of the one where he rides the
David Lynch.
I'm blanking on the name of the guy who made Twin Peaks. What was his name? No, what was the one where the character just rides a riding mower across the country? It's like The Long Journey or The Long.
Oh yeah, no, that one's outside of my field of expertise. I don't know that one.
I do. But unfortunately, it's my severed person who can remember what it is.
I referred to it as my non-lingual roommate.
My innie is is the one. Gosh darn it. Lost Highway? No, not Lost Highway.
Oh yeah.
Lost Highway is great, but that's not the name of the one
Lynch
I'm talking about. Yeah.
Soundtrack's great on that one. Trent Reznor.
Yeah. It's a really good movie that I embarrassingly have no idea what it's called.
The Straight Story?
Straight Story, Cliff Singer. Thank you so much. You've saved me. Yeah. And it's a sweet story. It's not Eraserhead. It's not Rabbits. It's a whole different kind of story. So anyway, here's to you, David Lynch. Let's move on to the buried treasure.
Most people want to know why they suddenly got rich.
Buried treasure.
Our Buried Treasure segment is where we talk about some things that we have been watching, maybe give you an idea of something you might want to watch. Brian, what you watching?
You know what? I wish I had more of a surprise for you, but we watched, continue to watch Silo. I continue to get my daughter into Cowboy Bebop. As a matter of fact, I want to hustle that up because in a couple of weeks, there's actually a 12-piece jazz ensemble at the Austin City Limits Theater that's going to do an entire celebration of Cowboy Bebop. So that's
that's fun.
Yeah, so they'll play all those jazz hits and a couple of originals, and it'll be great.
Oh, that's really cool. Especially with that soundtrack, which is so awesome. Silo finished. Cliffhanger. I mean, it ended its season, and it's going to continue next season. So there's more plot to come.
Tease up the next season. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Did you catch up? Are you all the way up?
No. Again, that's a Brian and Bonnie watch, and in fact, it's hindering our ability to get to Severance. We're so into it right now that I don't want to.
How close are you to the end of season 2?
I think we're 2/3 of the way through.
Okay.
I would explain what has happened, but that would be pretty spoilery.
Okay, we could talk about that on After Talk. You can catch me up to where you are in Silo. Having caught up and watched all of season 2, it's really well done still. And where they end it is fascinating because I haven't read all the books of Wool, the Silo series by Hugh Howey, and I have no idea what's coming next. And they really teed it up to be a fascinating third season, and I can't wait for it.
There is kind of and we've talked about the delicate dance of trailers having to give enough away that you go and see the movie, but that is always my favorite part in the movie is once I realize that we're into territory where I'm fully invested, but I have no idea where it's going to go.
Another thing, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, this Chinese drama Blossom, period piece. Remember, it was the one with potatoes. Later episode, they have a clock, like a Western clock that plays a part because only one of the characters knows how the clockwork works, and so she uses that to her advantage. The Chinese dramas have a thing where they will give you 2 to 3 trailers, and always one of them, it makes it look like a comedy. They just highlight all the comedic elements of the story, no matter what the story is. And then a second trailer will make it look like a very serious drama. And so it's always hilarious to just watch like the wacky princess story and then watch this princess is out for revenge. It's really fascinating. One thing that I have been watching that has become my morning ritual, it's become my morning news, is the firefighter briefings from the Palisades fire on the Cal Fire YouTube channel. And I don't mean that to be, like, hey, don't forget Los Angeles is in trouble. Things are actually improving here. There's a lot wrong, but things are going in the right direction. And one of the reasons I know that is I watch the actual firefighter briefing. These are the briefings that the firefighters are giving to the teams that are going on the day shift at the end of the night shift. They stream them every morning, usually around 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. And I cannot tell you how great it is to get that direct information. They are giving it to each other, but they are streaming it so that we can see it too. And so I get a weather report. I get a report on what happened overnight, what progress was made. I get an active report about here are the risks coming for the next day, and kind of by listening to what they're talking to each other about can gauge how worried they are. When they're talking about, now listen, if you've only got a scrape, go to this medical tent, not the other medical tent, and watch your speed out there. A few of you have been driving too fast. I'm like, okay, things are going really well if they're talking about that kind of stuff. But that has really become my morning news ritual, is just checking out the morning briefing. Even if I don't catch it live, you can still get it on demand on the Cal Fire channel. I bring this up because I bet there are more things like that in everyone's life that they don't know exist. Max, when I catch it live, maybe less than 100 people watching at a time in a city of millions and millions. Every neighbor that I've mentioned it to was like, yeah, I didn't know that existed. So I kind of want to raise awareness that, like, not only if you're in Los Angeles and interested in either the Palisades or the Eaton Fire has a briefing as well. You can watch this, but also maybe look around on YouTube for municipal stuff if there's things of concern in your own neighborhood, not even necessarily just disasters, but other things that you're like, why isn't anybody talking about this? Maybe somebody is and you just didn't look.
Yeah, I wonder how much the urgency is causing them, not that they would think of themselves as performers, but essentially to up their performance to peak levels. Like, I wonder if for I don't know, if it's municipal ticket writing or something, if you're going to get that quality of storytelling.
No, it's really good. The more popular videos are the community meetings. So they have the morning briefing, they have a community meeting and a press conference. The press conference is meant for the media to ask questions. It is very similar to what the firefighter briefing is, which is typical for media stuff. We're like, we're going to give you the same public information, but we're going to take some questions. The community meeting, they'll take Q&A from, in one case, they had a live audience, and every time they do it online, they'll take online questions and do some Q&A. And that's really helpful because you get some of your questions actually do show up and get answered. But those community meetings, particularly, suddenly you've got the U.S. representative for the area and the representative of the mayor and the guy who's a little farther up the chain than the rest of the folks, which is why I prefer the morning briefing, because it seems like you don't get dignitaries at 6:30 in the morning. You just get the people who are like, you know what, I just need to tell you what you need to know to get your shift done. So there is definitely a little playing to the camera going on in the other meetings. I'm sure there's a little playing to the camera going on in that morning briefing too, knowing that camera's up. But they've got serious business to do, so that probably counteracts it a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is Cal Fire on YouTube. If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us cordkillers@gmail.com. Now, Brian, we have launched a brand new show as part of the Daily Tech News Show family. We now have a trio of shows. We have a triplet. We had triplets at Daily Tech News Show.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I assume they're fraternal, where they share most of the same DNA, but they have different phenotypes.
Yes, they all have my eyes. But yes, there is Daily Tech Headlines, which has been going on for, 8 years or something. 5 minutes, 6 tops, but usually about 5 minutes. Here's what's happening in technology. You don't have a lot of time. You just want to get the headlines. That's Daily Tech Headlines. Then there's DTNS Live, which is our roundtable show. That's the new one. So if you're like, I want to hear Tom, Sarah, Roger, Justin Robert Young, Scott Johnson, Rob Dunwood, just chatting and kind of helping me wrap my head around things, that's DTNS Live. Daily Tech News Show Briefing is the half-hour tight, like, I need more than just the headlines. I want context. I want analysis, but I ain't got all day, and I want you to get to the point and keep it moving. That's Daily Tech News Show Briefing. So if you are on the traditional Daily Tech News Show feed, you get the briefing now. If you are wanting something that is more of a roundtable, go look up DTNS Live, and you can watch it live, too, because we stream it every day at 4 p.m. Eastern.
Right on. So the website to go to is dailytechnewsshow.com/subscribe.
dailytechnewsshow.com/subscribe give you details on all of those shows. Shall we scan the horizon?
I suppose.
Send a scanning to abort.
Scanning the horizon!
I think I called this one, and I'm not shocked, but in a meeting at Spinco, which is still part of Comcast. They haven't actually spinned it off yet, but they're doing planning meetings. Mark Lazarus, who is going to take charge of the spin-off of Comcast Cable Networks when it spins off later this year, said, I know there was some discussion with the MSNBC name, so you can take that off your worry list on things. Now,
thank goodness.
Everyone's, maybe he said more that isn't in this quote from Deadline. Everyone's casting this as MSNBC will retain its name. He didn't say that. If I'm in a room full of journalists, I would be saying, take it off our worry list because we're not keeping the name, or take it off our worry list because we are.
It's got to be, look, whatever it is MSNBC means to you, the home viewer, it means something. And usually you don't want to set fire to that unless, that thing is Twitter.
And the way this works, first of all, the MS in MSNBC used to mean Microsoft. It really doesn't anymore, although Microsoft allows them to keep using the MS in MSNBC. What's going to happen is Comcast is going to license its spinoff, SpinCo, or whatever it ends up being called, the right to use the NBC name. We'll see if they get to keep using the Peacock logo. They might have to change that. But they're going to say, SpinCo, we indemnify you against any trademark lawsuits. You're allowed to use this NBC name. They'll probably write up a list of do's and don'ts, like you can't call yourself NBC News. You have to say MSNBC News or something else. But my feeling, too, is that they're sending SpinCo out in the wilderness to lose money, in the least amount of money possible, maybe even make money. That would be a bonus if they can do that. And then once things have stabilized and they know what cable channels can survive in the streaming world and what can't, if any, then they're going to bring it back in. That's my guess. This is a temporary measure, and they wouldn't want MSNBC to lose its brand in that situation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Netflix's sports push seems to have helped it grow more than 9 million subscribers in the holiday quarter.
You mean it's sports-like live streams?
Well, both, right? There was the Tyson fight, but also the 2 NFL games. So they had like legit National Football League football.
Yeah, okay, all right. I was about to, thank you for stopping me before I said, it ain't a sport unless it's illegal to mess with it.
And they had both. They had the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight, but they also had the NFL fight. The NFL games on Christmas. And it seems to have caused some people to sign up for Netflix. And when you're in a subscription business, that's half the battle right there. Retention is important, but most subscription businesses, once you get them subscribed, people just tend to stay subscribed more than they unsubscribe.
That tracks.
DirecTV has announced a really interesting skinny bundle. If you recall, DirecTV and Dish were part of the Fubo suit as friends of the court, filing amicus briefs, and were the ones who are credited by some sources as saying, hey, Fubo may drop this suit, but we'd really like the court to weigh in on skinny bundles anyway. And as we know, Venue has been dropped. And strangely, shortly after the Venue skinny bundle from the holders of the sports rights went away, DirecTV announced My Sports, 40 channels, all sports, for $70 a month. Quite pricey when you compare it to maybe what Venue was going to go for. And certainly pricey compared to Netflix or Peacock or something like that. But you are getting ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, FS1, ESPN. Like you are getting all the sports. Not all regions have their regional sports. But if they get them and they say, keep checking back because we're working on that. I'll be honest. Right now, I get DirecTV now because it has Sportsnet LA, which is the only place to get the Dodgers. And my wife and I enjoy watching the Dodgers. She's a Dodger fan. I enjoy watching baseball all the time. If they add Sportsnet LA, I would probably change my subscription from the one I have now to this one because that's really all we're watching it for.
You know what? Part of me hopes you do that just so you can give us a boots on the ground for that.
Yeah. If I did, and if I, I'm not going to mess around with the Dodgers, or I just switch anyway and see what happened. But I like being married, so I'm gonna stay that way. But this is a really smart move by DirecTV, and I think we're going to see more of this kind of bundle. Meanwhile, Sling TV, which I always recommended as a sports bundle in the back when it was $20 and you could get ESPN. I'm like, there you go. You can get ESPN right now. Just sign up for Sling TV for $20. It's more than $20 now. But it has added unlimited recording to its DVR. Before there was an upper limit on how much you could have before it auto deleted, but no more. Still cost you $5 extra if you want to have DVR on your Sling TV, but there's no limit on how much you can store on it now.
I'll tell you what, Tom, this for some reason tickled the part of my brain that had us speculating wildly about the future of subscriptions of channels by way of YouTube. And if you think of Sling as, the first online cable replacement service, then that statement of unlimited recording has value. But how silly does that same statement feel when you
Yeah.
think about getting your channels on YouTube? Like, really? YouTube, I can record everything unlimited? Thank you.
Yeah. In a world where increasingly we think of shows as just being available, like Netflix Stranger Things, I don't need to DVR it. It'll be there. It does feel a little bit like a too little too late, but I am always surprised how many people are like, no, I really like the DVR functionality. I really like being able to record things. We've used it occasionally on DirecTV for things where they are not easily found on YouTube or elsewhere. So I don't know that I need it to be unlimited anymore, but I guess it's a good way for Sling TV to remind folks that they exist.
Yeah.
Finally, Cordkillers News reports that the average cable TV price hike in 2024 was about $15 a month, with some providers raising prices twice. A lot of the press goes to Netflix raised its price, Disney Plus raised its price. None of those services raised their prices $15 a month. So when someone says, they're raising prices on these streaming packages, I might as well switch back to cable. Remind them, cable raises its price more on average than streaming services and more often, at least according to this study.
That tracks.
Yep, it does. All right, let's move on to the chatter.
You've got mail.
Hey, Brian, Tom, and Amos, writes Sean. I have 3 TVs that all had 2018 Roku streaming sticks and realized that it was overdue to update them. Plus, Roku had a sale. So I bought 3 2024 streaming stick 4Ks. Some of the features that were rolled out to the old Rokus were backdrop apps. You're able to set the screen to be work or personal photos. Think a poor man version of Samsung's frame art. The feature of My Entertainment as an option among home settings, search, etc. on the left side of the screen lets you jump back into whatever you were watching across whatever service you were watching or whatever logged into the same account Roku device you have. Prior to the My Entertainment feature, one would have had to go into each individual app, channel, or service to pick up where you left off watching whatever you were watching, and now you can pick up where you left off without having to remember which service you were watching. This may have been a feature rolled out to all models, and I was just coincidentally seeing it on my new devices, or it was made available last year, but not to my old Roku. I'm not sure, but still, Sean really likes it.
As always, love the first-hand accounts. Please keep them coming.
Yeah, in fact, Bob says the main show and After Talk are not showing up in my feed in Overcast, just the full experience. Seems like this RSS is experiencing similar issues to DTNS. Yes, Patreon borked its RSS feeds early last week, and a lot of stuff just didn't show up for people. Our apologies to that. It was not anything we could do anything about, but it seems to have been fixed. So Bob, please confirm, and everybody else, hopefully it stays unborked. George says, YouTube has been a backup for Cordkillers since last October. As a patron, I get the emits, but nothing is showing up on my iTunes pocket. I think it's the same thing as Bob.
Yeah. Well, and in that case, we were talking about the RSS feed, especially with the video. Again, not everybody listens to every single episode, especially since some of them people can't get because of problems like this. But archive.org got hacked, and that was a big problem. And we're still seeing the shakeout from that.
Andrew writes, gentlemen, I'm a longtime listener since the frame rate days. Love the shows, blah, blah, blah. Hi, Tom. It's me again. Hi, Andrew. Every time I hear the opening to After Talk, I cannot remember the origins of "You are on the record." Did this tagline develop before or after the Reckoning transition, and what's its meaning? How do you feel with the Reckoning transition in general? In the same manner the show was always enhanced when Bryce would speak up, Amos always adds value with his contributions. For myself, the lack of guests doesn't detract from the episodes in the least. At first I was aware and only a little bit thrown off when you weren't introducing a guest, but now I don't miss that ingredient in the least. This email was intended to ask the simple question about "You are on the record," but obviously things got away from me. Please ignore or edit it as you need. No, this is all good, Andrew. Thank you.
This is my favorite Shaggy Dog email in a long time. I loved everywhere that this one went. Starting with the initial question, I think that was just basically a line of demarcation to let Brian know that we are pressing record now.
Yeah, Bryce started "You are on the record" to let us know that, we were being recorded. I have added the feeling behind it of a fantasy sports draft room, because when we do our fantasy baseball draft, the automatic voice lets you know when it's your turn to pick by saying, you are on the clock. And so I would hear that every time Bryce would say it. So now that I'm saying it, I feel it's
You're
that
leaning
way.
into it.
Yeah. How do you feel Reckoning is going?
Fantastic. I mean, look, Reckoning was sort of a recognition. It was a recognizing of the fact that being the leaders of a revolution that was clearly over was no longer fitting the narrative. And I like the fact that we have a lot more leeway to, I don't know, talk for 20 minutes about real life cognitive neuroscience and still keep to our mission, because, our fan base is a fascinating lot, because some of them were here for the previous iteration of this show. Some people fell in because they hated cable companies and they wanted to cut the cords. It's actually a tremendous show of faith that as we, in our current iteration, engage in a lot of thoughtful Tom and Brian discussions, hopefully we're doing a good job of threading the needle of both, making sure to stick to our mission statement and also provide interesting context and value and camaraderie along the way. If you appreciate it, if we've kept you company during, I don't know, interesting, lonely, trying times while doing the dishes, just remember us at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Indeed. Please do. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We are live at twitch.tv/9attack Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I reckon we'll talk to you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.